Tonight on Our News, a 21-year sentence for a man who stabbed his girlfriend 23 times a decade ago. Plus, one step closer, adjustments to the rate of minimum wage on Cabinet's agenda. And the survivors of that recent boat tragedy that claimed the lives of 17 to be repatriated. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Berthany McDermott. A 51-year-old man has been jailed after stabbing his girlfriend 23 times a decade ago. Craig Johnson, then 38 years old, killed 33-year-old Shaka Khan Moss following an argument at a funeral repast at a home on Shirley Street and Canaan Lane on August 22, 2009. The court heard that Johnson killed Moss in front of their young children and other witnesses. Prosecutors say an argument arose after Moss wanted to leave the repast to attend another event. After being on bail for 10 years, Johnson finally taking responsibility for his actions, pleading guilty to Moss's murder ahead of his trial before Justice Cheryl Grant Thompson. She sentenced him to 21 years in prison, less the 3 years he's already spent before being released on bail as part of a plea deal. Meanwhile, a trial date has been set for a man accused of the death of 4-year-old Donya Bella Walker. Darian Smith will stand trial for little Bella's murder on November 7th. The trial is expected to last for 2 weeks. Bella's mother, Astonia Walker, will stand trial alongside him on charges of child cruelty and exposing a child to grievous harm. Bella died at the Princess Margaret Hospital on November 5th, 2021 from injuries caused by blunt force trauma. Smith and Walker are on bail. A woman in her early 20s is in police custody tonight after an early morning stabbing incident. Police say the incident unfolded shortly after 1 a.m. when a man was stabbed in the upper body by a female acquaintance. The victim was taken to hospital where he is listed in serious condition and the woman was taken into custody. Police releasing few details about the recent death of a 70-year-old American tourist who died in Exuma. Police are classifying the incident as a sudden death and say no foul play is expected. Police also reporting that his body will be flown to New Providence for an autopsy that will determine the exact cause of death. This is the second incident involving the death of visitors on that island. 3 Americans were found dead at Sandals Emerald Bay on May 6th. Autopsies later revealed the cause of death were due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Prime Minister Philip Davis officially opening the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change at Bahar Mar this morning. Our news is covering the discussions between regional leaders and we'll have more from the opening ceremony in a moment. But first, Cabinet is set to begin discussions on a minimum wage increase, according to Minister Responsible Keith Bell, who says he anticipates a decision will be made next week. The Davis administration pledged to increase the minimum wage in the speech from the throne. Currently, minimum wage in the public sector stands at $225 per week and $210 per week in the private sector.
The matter is before the Cabinet. The Cabinet is in active discussion, and we anticipate that the Cabinet meeting, which is next week Tuesday, that we should be able to come to some conclusion in respect to what the minimum wage would look like. Obviously, as you would anticipate, there will be more dialogue and more consultation, but I'm very pleased where we are at this stage with it.
Also tonight, Dome City residents over in Abaco about to receive a $4,000 government-issued stipend as officials get ready to close down the area. We'll tell you about that in a moment. But now, temperatures hovering in the 90s with a feel-like temperature of 106 degrees yesterday. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is now in the Weather Center with your first look and your feel-like tonight. Greg?
Thanks, Berthany, and welcome everybody for a first look at weather on this warm Tuesday evening. Temperatures in mid-80s right now outside our studios with a few clouds. Winds are still out of the west-southwest at 6 miles per hour, and it's pumping in that warm tropical air mass across the area, and that's making it feel like 93 degrees on the outside. Satellite view, upper level trough, and a feature of surface trough actually to the north of the Bahamas. Still in place, triggering some isolated showers and thunderstorms, mainly across the northwest Bahamas. Some of that drifting into the central Bahamas as we speak. But the showers and isolated thunderstorm activity will remain across the northwest Bahamas tonight to tomorrow, with high pressure dominating the remainder of the islands. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, how the former Menace administration says it planned to tackle the issue of citizenship equality, and the latest in that recent boating tragedy that claimed the lives of 17 as survivors are to be repatriated. Plus, the $4,000 government-issued stipend for Dome City residents over in Abaco. That's coming up when our news returns.
The Bahamas Chinese Dragon Boat Association is proud to welcome you to the inaugural Bahamas Dragon Boat Festival at Goodman's Bay, August 20th and 21st. Come and join your Chinese Bahamian family and friends as they display a complete fusion of our cultures. Race heats will be held on Saturday, August 20th, with the finals, medal presentation, and live entertainment on Sunday, August 21st. Come out and have a really special weekend. Co-sponsored and supported by Caribbean Bottling, Commonwealth Brewery Limited, and the Ministry of Tourism.
As government prepares to present legislation to tackle the issue of equality for citizenship rights, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis says his administration was exploring the issue. Last week, Attorney General Ryan Pinder noted that there will be no third referendum on citizenship and says instead the government will amend the Bahamas Nationality Act to equalize rights that will allow men and women to both pass on citizenship to their children. Dr. Minnis insisting his administration also plans on taking a legislative route.
We were going to ensure that that was done. We were prepared to bring in the legislation, and we understand the challenges, legislation versus constitution, and it can be challenged.
And here's what Dr. Minnis suggests moving forward.
It's essential that before it's done, that extensive educational process ensue, so that the Bahamian populace understands exactly what you're trying to do, what was done in the past, failed, etc. But I think in terms of equality, that's the proper way to go. But education is the most important thing.
Former Minister of Foreign Affairs Darren Henfield calling on the Davis administration to beef up its strategy to deal with illegal immigration, especially in light of the recent capsizing tragedy involving Haitian migrants.
We need to hear from the government of Bahamas what their strategy is going forward. We understand that CARICOM has invited the government, the Prime Minister, to come to Haiti, and so they can all meet in Haiti and see where we go with this issue.
Henfield also expressing concern at the continued growth of shanty towns.
We also are concerned about the exponential growth of shanty communities in the Bahamas. Whilst we were in office, we made an attempt to regularize some of these communities. We were stopped by the courts. The courts didn't allow us to go any further.
The 15 Haitian nationals who were a part of that ill-fated smuggling operation will be among 130 Haitian migrants repatriated this week. That's according to Immigration Minister Keith Bell. Following the incident, the survivors were housed at the detention center after being checked out by medical officials.
This week we anticipate that we're going to repatriate 130 irregular Haitian migrants to Haiti, and another 30 plus to Cuba. And in that number going back to Haiti would be 15 migrants who were involved in that tragedy.
4 men were charged with 18 counts of manslaughter in connection with the tragedy. Of the victims, officials say only 6 were officially identified weeks after the incident. As for the remaining bodies, Bell shooting down assertions that officials had given family members a deadline to identify them.
Certainly there can be no deadline. That is, we're exercising the highest degree of humanity as we possibly can, and we are continuing to work with the Haitian community, with Haitian pastors, to ensure that it remains identified and they're given the highest degree of dignity and respect.
Government plans on completing several audits before releasing a report on pandemic spending, according to Prime Minister Philip Davis. Davis explaining they want to give those impacted time to respond to the audit before making that information public. Davis, as Minister of Finance, is required to lay a report in Parliament 6 weeks after the expiration of the state of emergency, which ended in November. But no such report has been laid.
We're far beyond 6 weeks, right? We're almost a year since the expiration of that. What we are doing, we've been doing several audits on some of the spending. We do have some results, but we think that before we release those who might be impacted by it would have an opportunity to respond to what we're going to release. And so, yes, we do have a number of still unanswered questions, and we are still attempting to get responses from persons who were engaged in, for example, the food program and some of the other spendings that we know. But we will be at the appropriate time putting out some report on it.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
When our news comes back from the break, regional government heads convening in the Bahamas to discuss climate change. More from the Prime Minister's opening remarks straight ahead.
Plus, coming up in sports for you tonight, Grand Bahama gearing up for the NACAC Track and Field Championships. We'll give you details on that. We'll also tell you about the latest from the Bahamas Government Departmental Basketball Association. That's all coming up in sports.
And later, the Life for Key Foundation Scholarship empowering public officers. The story when our news returns.
The Bahamas Chinese Dragon Boat Association is proud to welcome you to the inaugural Bahamas Dragon Boat Festival at Goodman's Bay, August 20th and 21st. Come and join your Chinese Bahamian family and friends as they display a complete fusion of our cultures. Race heats will be held on Saturday, August 20th with the finals, medal presentation and live entertainment on Sunday, August 21st. Come out and have a really special weekend. Co-sponsored and supported by Caribbean Bottling, Commonwealth Brewery Limited and the Ministry of Tourism.
This is our news. Welcome back. Prime Minister Philip Davis officially opening the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change this morning. Given the fact that the Bahamas is among the top 3 countries most vulnerable to climate change, the inaugural event was introduced by the government to bring Caribbean leaders together to devise a regional position on climate change mitigation.
The challenges we face are stark, but they are not insurmountable. One thing is clear. Success will require collective action. If we advance our interests merely as individual small island developing states, our voices will be dispersed, unable to be heard above louder, wealthier, carbon-producing interests.
The Prime Minister stressing in his opening address that there is more room for innovation when it comes to tackling climate change.
There really is strength in numbers. And if we stand together, we are less likely to fall apart. And so this regional meeting is critical. Our shared characteristics go beyond our physical geography. We need to find effective, efficient ways to adapt to new realities. We have to restructure our lives and our living environment to mitigate against the disasters which are becoming more frequent and more severe.
Just 2 weeks shy of the 3rd anniversary of Hurricane Dorian, which left hundreds of Abaco residents displaced and caused many families to be housed in temporary housing, Dome City residents have just weeks to relocate. But as the Transport and Housing Minister reveals, they will get thousands of dollars to help. Jamila Mizik has the details.
Letters have been issued to residents of those domes in Abaco advising them on the way forward for the infamous Dome City. That's according to Minister of Transport and Housing GOVT Davis, who says since the Davis administration announced plans to do away with the Dome City, some residents have already relocated out of the domes.
They have already gotten cabinet to approve a reallocation fund for each family moving out of the dome. I think it's $4,000 per family. And once they have found their new place of residence. They issued the funds to assist with the rent and security.
The housing minister says the domes will be demolished as they are unsafe health hazards. In June, it was revealed that government officials were investigating reports that emergency dome houses on Abaco are being used as brothels. As authorities continue their investigations into the alleged illegal activity, Colby Davis says residents have been required to relocate by the end of August. And as for what will happen to those residents who live in domes situated on their own property, she says,
so that actually falls under the DRA. So I think that they are actually also on the ground in Abaco and Grand Bahama doing assessments so that they can be able to price out the cost of what is left to be done in those homes so they can get the families back in their homes as soon as possible.
Now, as it relates to the housing project, she says there are a few homes underway in the Central Pines area, and they will be expanding to the area where they will demolish the domes.
We have our site plan that gives us 11 lots on that actual property, and so we'll start there with the 11 lots. Right across the street, I think we're going to be doing 21 lots, so that'll be about 32 homes in total that we get out of that particular area.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jamila Missick.
Thanks, Jamila. Grand Bahama gearing up to host a major international track and field meet this weekend. Meanwhile, the latest from a local basketball league in New Providence. Marcellus Hall is up now with sports.
All right, thanks, Berthany. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Final preparations are going on as the NACAC Championships come to the island of Grand Bahama. That's going to be the hubbub for all the top track and field athletes, basically from this entire region, as they gear up to see who's going to be top dog at the end of the day. Let's take a look. 3 days left now before the start of the NACAC Track and Field Championships, which will take place in Freeport, Grand Bahama. With that being said, final preparations are being made to the GB Sports Complex ahead of the event, which will feature countries from around the North American, Central American, and Caribbean region. On hand, as the groundbreaking process and refurbishment process taking place, was Norris Bain, Deputy Director of Sports and Deputy Managing Director, NACAC Championships.
The government is making a significant investment in the upgrade of this facility. We have some legacy pieces that are being left in Grand Bahama. No longer, like you heard the minister say, will we have to be sending to Nassau when this is all over for equipment. All of the equipment that are coming in will stay in Grand Bahama for future events. Quite a lot of painting and facelift has been done here, as you can see. We will continue to improve this facility under this government to make sure that we are able to do future events here on the island.
Some basketball news here in New Providence, as last night Bahamas Government Departmental Basketball Association action continued over at the AF Valley Gym. Taking a look at your scoreboard in from last night, the Royals taking on Defense Force Mariners. Mariners with an easy win here, 77-47 ends up being the final score, as Elway Pickstock led the way for the Mariners with 21 points. In the feature contest, the Bahamas Department of Corrections, they took on Rampage. Rampage able to hold off and get the win here by 2, 60-58. Keithan Gray led Rampage with 17 points. Rashad Woodside was top scorer for Bahamas Department of Corrections. He had 19 in the losing cause. And that is your look at sports here on this Tuesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Berthany.
Still ahead on our news tonight, educators convening in a conclave this week as the countdown to back to school is on. Plus, Greg is back in the Weather Center with your extended outlook and the 2-year scholarship that will empower public officers thanks to the Life for Key Foundation. That's coming up when our news returns.
The Bahamas Chinese Dragon Boat Association is proud to welcome you to the inaugural Bahamas Dragon Boat Festival at Goodman's Bay, August 20th and 21st. Come and join your Chinese Bahamian family and friends as they display a complete fusion of our cultures. Race heats will be held on Saturday, August 20th, with the finals, medal presentation, and live entertainment on Sunday, August 21st. Come out and have a really special weekend. Co-sponsored and supported by Caribbean Bottling, Commonwealth Brewery Limited, and the Ministry of Tourism.
Welcome back to our news. Scores of officials gathering at Loyola Hall to take part in the Department of Education's Public Schools Administrators Conclave this week. The event was held under the theme, Rethink, Retool, Reboot, Transforming the Teaching Learning Experience. Bringing the keynote address was Education Minister Glenys Hannah Martin.
You as leaders in a not-so-easy endeavor have what I know is a not-so-easy task, but you are nevertheless and especially called upon to be equipped and prepared, to be responsive, to be ahead of the game, if I may use that terminology for such a serious task. In this process of education, we must be mindful that our teachers are in the heat of the matter, so to speak.
We are now watching an area developing in the Southwest Caribbean, but Greg, who is now back in the Weather Center, telling us the rest of the tropics remain quiet. Hello, Greg.
Thanks again, Berthany. Welcome back, everybody, for our second look at weather. Tropics, well, we take a quick look at that. That area that we were watching just to the south of Bermuda is basically fizzled out. A little bit of a spin there. Most of the activity has waned, and we do have that upper level trough hanging out near the northwest Bahamas, triggering some isolated showers. That is actually not showing any signs of development, as the National Hurricane Center is now watching an area down in the southwestern Caribbean, expected to move inland across Central America. A lot of showers and isolated thunderstorms associated with that, but we don't expect much in terms of any development, as its close proximity to land will limit its development over the next couple of days. The remainder of the tropics and across our area, ridge of high pressure and some Saharan dust in place, and that will continue to keep things rather dry. Light winds expected to cross the Bahamas tonight to tomorrow, and it looks like though we may have some very nice boating conditions through the remainder of the week. Speaking of boating forecasts, northwest Bahamas, winds will be out of the south-southwest at 10 to 15 knots. They will fall light and variable at times. The seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. Tide is presently low, will be high at 17 minutes past midnight. For the central and southeast Bahamas, a more east to southeasterly flow expected at 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be running 2 to 4 feet, though those winds will also fall light and variable at times, and those seas will fall almost flat later on tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your 7-day planner, quiet weather expected over the islands. Hot temperatures will continue as that ridge of high pressure remains in charge. Light winds expected through the remainder of the week. And of course, those warm temperatures and that relative humidity will make things feel rather warm. Triple-digit indices expected. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe evening, everybody.
And finally tonight, one lucky public officer will have the chance to pursue a graduate degree at the University of Toronto, thanks to the Life for Key Foundation new Peter Monk Scholarship for Public Sector Excellence. Executive Director of the Life for Key Foundation, Nicola Virgil, detailing the requirements for the ideal candidate.
The selected officer should demonstrate a long-term passion and commitment to the public service and must commit to returning to the public service upon completion of the program. There are no age limits to qualify for a Life for Key Foundation scholarship. Interested applicants must apply separately to the Monk School. When we have an information session led by the admissions office of the Monk School on Tuesday, 16th of August at 10 a.m. via Zoom for any public officer who is interested.
The scholarship will cover the 2 years of tuition, room, and board. For more information, you can visit the Ministry of Public Service Facebook page. For more stories like this and all of today's top stories, be sure to visit Our News Bahamas on Facebook. With that, we thank you for joining us for Our News Tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Berthany McDermott. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a wonderful evening, Bahamas.